Today I'm working through my pattern to create a gingerbread doll. If you would like to create your own gingerbread doll, you can purchase this pattern from my Etsy store, which is also called Waldorf Wonderthings. I'll put a link in the description. Before we make our gingerbread man, we first need to gather our supplies. We start with our pattern. We have a hood pattern, a head pattern and a body pattern. We'll need our body fabric, some skin fabric. I have a scrap piece of skin fabric with a red beeswax crayon for colouring cheeks, cotton thread, strong cotton thread, gauze, some wool roving for stuffing and making the head, some embroidery thread, pins, needle. I also have 3 little buttons. You may choose to create your buttons out of felt. I have a red ribbon. I have some white rickrack, a chopstick, a pencil, some scissors, some snips and some pliers. Okay, let's get started. Now the first thing I've done to make our gingerbread is I've taken the pattern and I've copied it onto the back of the fabric. Now you'll notice that I haven't done them together this time, and that's because we're going to have to add the rickrack to our little gingerbread arms and legs. But luckily for me, once I drew the outline, I turned it over and I saw that the outline has made an impression on the other side of the fabric. So that makes it really easy for me to come and put the rickrack on. So I'm just going to give it a little bend here and place it where I want it on my gingerbread. So I'll come and I'll sew the edges on this side of the leg and on the middle in 2 spots, close to this leg and close to this leg, and also on the other side. I'll also do the arms here, and of course I'll do this side, and I'll try to match the position as much as I can. You can see that I've pinned my rickrack in place here. So I'm just going to sew the edges on this side and then this side, and then I'll do the middle, and then I'm going to very carefully work the stitching through the middle of the rickrack to keep it in place. Now we've finished sewing the rickrack on both sides, we're going to take our pieces and put them back together so we can sew them. So we want them right sides together. Now, as I'm doing this, I'm going to try to match up the spots where I know the rickrack, where they meet. So that will make it look a bit better when it's all finished. Now, because these weren't cut out at the same time, I've made them a little bit wonky. So it might take you a couple of minutes to get them in the right spot. And when you're happy with the placement, just pin them and then we're going to sew them. To sew, we're going to start at this top edge and sew all the way around. When I sewed it, I'm also going to cut 2 little snips just under the armpits to release the arm. I'm just about to start sewing. I did want to note that I did change the color of my thread. So I did have white when I was doing the rickrack, and now that I'm doing the body, I've changed it to a brown color. So remember I said we're starting at the top of the arm, and you either want to be on the line or inside the line. If you, when you were doing your rickrack, you've got your stitching here or here, you want to be on the inside of your white stitches. Okay, I've just finished going around all the edges. Now the one thing I want to do is make sure that all of my little rickrack points are on the outside. You can see here that I've got one going through the middle. So what I'm going to do is just continue this little line of stitching and bring it a little bit over because I don't want that showing through on the other side. Okay, now I'm turning my little gingerbread in the right way. I'm going to use the help of a chopstick to do that. First I'll try with the blunted edge. So I don't really want to go through the seams that I've just created. So I'll start with the little arms. And then I will go on to the little feet. Okay, here we have a little body. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to stuff each little section, each little limb with some wool roving. Oh, I'm just getting those seams pushed out a bit better. Okay. So to do that, I'm just going to make some little leg parts first. So I want 2 balls around about the same size to create just a little, almost a cylinder shape, just to stuff that right down into your little leg. Make sure it goes down to the bottom. And on the other side as well. And then we're going to do the same for the arms. Create 2 little balls around about the same amount of wool in each. Roll it into a little ball, a little cylinder type shape, and use your chopstick to push that through. We're going to create the little body. We don't want to stuff this right to the top because we still have to put the head in. So I've got a little ball of stuffing. It's just going to sit mostly just above where the legs are at the moment. Okay, so that's all we need at the moment. And then we will put the head in here. But first we need to get on to putting the hood on the head. So let's do that now. To make the hood, I've just pinned the hood template onto the fabric. And now I'm just going to cut it out directly. I don't need to draw around this one. So now I'm going to sew these edges. I'm going to take the raw edge and I'm going to create a tiny hem on the face side of it. So that's the long straight side. I'm going to pull it back here and hem this tiny edge here. Now that I've hemmed both sides, I'm going to put the right sides together. Then I'm going to machine stitch around the back. So I'm going to start about here, not right at the front. So start about here, then go backwards to the front, and then continue on. I do that so that I don't end up with little bits of string sticking out the front. Hood ready. I also have my little head ready. I haven't put the instructions on how to make these little heads because I've already made a video explaining how to do that. So I'll put the link in the description for that. Otherwise, let's attach our hood to our head. So what I've done here, I've just pinched this little seam and I've placed it carefully in the center on the top of the head. Now push back your strings from your embroidery. And you're just going to bring the bottom of the hood together under the chin. So you might want to play around with this to make sure you get it exactly in the position that you want. So when you're happy with it, take your needle and thread, and you're going to catch a bit of the velour on this side and then on this side, and then bring them together and you want to double knot that so it is nice and secure. Now we've got the hood on, we're going to create a running stitch around the neck. So we're not actually catching the neck underneath, we're just catching the velour on the top. So just the fabric as we go around. Now it's a very loose running stitch, so just catch a couple of bits of fabric as you go around. And we're following the neckline. So we want that strand in a second. So I'm going to pull this tight. You can see how it's gathered around the neck there. Now we're going to put another double knot to hold this in place. Make sure your hood is in the right position where you want it. So I'm going to take our needle now and run along where I can see that line of stitching already is. I want to go on the outside of it so that I won't be able to see any raw edges at all. So we're going to stitch around the face and then go another time around. So I've just finished going around the head twice. I'm just going to secure this string with a double knot. And then I'm going to insert the needle through the neck, out the other side. I'll just snip that there to hold that in place. And I'll do that with this string here as well. Now we have our little body and our little head ready. So what we're going to do is put the head in the body. So in the body, I'm just going to create a little pocket in here by pushing the roving to the sides. And in that little space that I've just created, I'm going to put the head inside. Might take a little bit of a wiggle room. When I'm happy with that placement, I'm going to pin the fabric to the front of the head. On the back, I'm going to take my needle and thread and secure a section just in the back of the fabric there. And I'll double knot this so it's nice and secure. And then I'm just going to tuck that thread inside where the neck is. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to ladder stitch the body material and the head material. I do want to go through the head or the hood material into the head. So I'm connecting the fabric here to the solid part of the head. You also have these little gaps here. So when I come up to here, instead of attaching to the head, I'll just ladder stitch this section here together and then I will go back to the head. Okay, so let's get on to that. So again, I'm trying to catch more than just that fabric of the hood. I'm trying to get the head underneath. So now this is the point where I'm just going to close this hole. To do that, I'm just grabbing a bit of material on this side and then turning to the front and taking a bit of material from this side. So that will now bring that closed and I'm going to stitch that in place. Now I'm coming back to where I started. I'm going to work all the way back around, and then when I get to here, I'll create a double knot and sink those loose threads through the body to create some invisible stitches. Now we're going to add buttons to our little gingerbread. You could use regular buttons, but if you're making your gingerbread for a small child, I recommend cutting your buttons out of pieces of felt and stitching them on securely. Now to do that, you want to take your needle and thread and secure to the front of your gingerbread. Do that with a double knot before you start stitching. I'm attaching this little felt button using a blanket stitch. So I'm going to continue my blanket stitch around this piece of felt. Then when I've done here, I'll do a little knot, bring my needle underneath the fabric, secure it as a knot here, and then continue on this one. And then the same for the last piece. Now to finish off our little gingerbread, I'm just going to give him some cheek colouring and a little bit of colour around his nose. So I've got my red beeswax crayon and my scrap piece of skin fabric, and I've just rubbed some of the crayon onto the fabric. So now that's done, I'm going to take the little fabric and fold it in half and half again, so I've got a little point. Now with this, I'm just gently going to rub in circles to create little cheek colorings here. I'll do it on the other side. Now if you feel that you make a mistake doing this, don't worry, because it does wear out. And I advise you to keep hold of this little piece of scrap fabric with your crayon on it so you can reapply that if you need to at a later time. Now you can see I'm just creating the little nose color. All I'm doing is going from where I imagine the bridge of the nose is, and then in a diagonal line down towards where the cheeks are. So that's his little face. Now the last thing is to add a little bit of ribbon. Take your red ribbon and tie a knot, and then just add a little bow. Okay, now your little gingerbread man is finished. I hope you enjoyed working along with me in this tutorial. Thank you for watching, and if you found this video helpful, show your support by giving it a like. And if you'd like to stay updated with all of my new tutorials, please subscribe.